Welcome to this video tutorial on how to use logic to eliminate self-sabotage. We all impede our own progress, whether it's in healing or whether it's in growth, and it's ridiculous and it's easy to fix. My name is Elizabeth. I'm a co-founder of Keren School of Healing and Mastery. We are the choice training provider for light workers and students of life. We make roadmaps and tools for you to use on life's path, and we teach you how to use them for a greater experience of healing, mastery, and peace. Now, if you sent your email address to get hold of this class, that's great. And if you found it elsewhere or somebody sent it to you, that's also great. But please send me a private message with your email address so that I can send back to you a free downloadable MP3 healing thought experiment called The Floating Man. So just drop a note to kerenschoolofhealing@gmail.com. Right, for this class, I recommend that you have these essential oils: peppermint, lavender, and cedarwood. And if you don't know, essential oils are like little tuning forks in a bottle. So they really help with the sort of work that we're going to be doing in this class. And frankly, any inner work that you do, whether it's in the mental realm or in your vibrational space or in the molecular field in your body, essential oils really are essential tools for enhancing and accelerating your healing progress. So before we dive into study, grab your bottle of lavender essential oil. Now, lavender, with its refreshing and calming scent, reduces nervous tension, and its constituents are very well known for boosting the mood and lowering the production of stress hormones. Now, since stress is the leading cause of inflammation and disease and dissonance in the biofield, you can use this oil almost like tilling the soil to prepare the blood chemistry and the biofield so that the work that we do today on your brain engineering is going to be optimized. So what you do is you drop one drop in the palm of your hand. You rub it together and breathe in deep. Just notice what you notice, the layers of scent. Let the aroma travel smoothly into your brain through the olfactory nerve and deep into your lungs. From there, into the blood system and into every cell in the body, soothing and calming, whispering tones of hope and serenity deep into the very DNA that is the thread woven into the fabric of what you are. Now you are made of calm and harmony and peace. Now you set this intention: I have come, I have arrived, I am here. I am willing, I am receptive. All teachings in line with my highest purpose are easily learned and embodied in my molecular structure. And all teachings not in line with my highest purpose are easily forgiven and released. I am sovereign, and so it is. Now let me tell you why I wanted to give this workshop for free. There is one tool that you carry with you all the time that is incredibly useful for creating, and that most of the time is used to destroy. You can use it to heal instead of to harm, and it's logic. A little bit about me. My name is Elizabeth. I am an ontological healer and coach. Ontology is the branch of philosophy that deals with life, the art and craft of living it well, and navigating the human journey with a particular emphasis on systems of thought. I enjoy a life of grace and ease and super fast healing, but it wasn't always like that. Like you, I am a thinker, I am acutely intelligent, which in many ways often enslaved my awareness to within the confines of thought. And in my darkest days of anxiety and excessive overanalysis, I was trapped in cycles of repetitive questioning and second guessing. The agony of the mental imprisonment, the metallic clanging of clogs inside my mind sabotaged every single effort that I made and every investment that I made in my healing and my progress, which seriously slowed down the work that I was doing. For example, have you ever invested in a healing program like a detox or a coaching or a therapy or even a book or a yoga instructor, and then spent so much time questioning or analyzing or wondering if it's working that you've missed out on, or even worse, cancelled out on the benefit of the healing? Or have you ever put your all into your healing and your transformation and your enlightenment and wondered why your healing progress seems to be slow, or why you seem to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back all the time? It could very well have to do with self-sabotage that comes from a system of overthinking. Now, this might sound counterintuitive because self-sabotage is unconscious and thinking is supposed to be a conscious process. But as a matter of fact, that's not the case, and I'm going to show you why, and I'm going to show you how to fix it. Now, the trouble with overthinking is that an enormous amount of energy goes into it, energy that could be released and directed into your healing and growth. And another really annoying side effect of overthinking, particularly negative thinking, is that it sabotages your progress and expansion in all areas of your life. Just like how one false note in a symphony orchestra can disrupt the harmony of the entire ensemble, no matter how beautifully every other individual musician plays, and no matter how masterfully the conductor conducts, that one false note is enough to disrupt the experience of harmony, even though that harmony was still present. It's ridiculous, really, the stupid ways that we ruin our healing progress with this habit. I'm going to tell you a story about my husband, Matt. Bless his lovely, 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 lovely soul. He had been churning over something, grumbling about something, 2 conflicting ideals that he had, and he couldn't get to the bottom of them because there is no bottom in circular overthinking. And his neck was tense, his shoulders were in pain, his adrenals were depleted, he had no energy at all. So I bought him a massage. He spent the whole hour there noticing everything that was wrong. The pressure wasn't right, there was a crack in the wall, the music was weird, the oils smelled too pungent. I mean, who does that? It's a massage, right? Just enjoy it. It was like his thoughts were being contrary. He was stuck in logic systems that were tasked with seeking out evidence that things were going wrong. He was in a state of conflicting thought, and he was finding evidence of that conflict in his environment. That false note that disrupts the beautiful harmony of the whole that is still there. And it's funny when the effect is a grumpy old man who's refusing to enjoy a massage. He's going to kill me for calling him old. But there's a more sinister effect to it as well. It seriously impedes your healing. The nocebo effect is a well-documented phenomenon where your power of mind cancels out the healing benefits of the therapy that you're undertaking. And the result is that you spend more time and more money and more suffering to get the results that you want. And it's not fair. We're surrounded by beauty and healing, and we know it. We should get to experience it. And we are allowed to experience it. It is permissible to experience nothing but beauty and harmony. So what's the solution? Stop thinking? Well, that's easier said than done. Meditation does help to still the mind. And so we must practice mindfulness and meditation, but those thoughts will turn back on again because that's what they do. And when they do, can we use them for real, rapid healing and growth? Can we harness those thoughts and direct them so that they support, not impede, your healing efforts? Now, the good thing about us overthinkers is that we already have an intimacy with our thinking function and a good awareness of the language and tone of the thoughts that mostly hold our attention. And this is a superpower. No matter what people say about overthinking, this is a superpower, to have that intimacy with your thoughts and to know already the tone and language of the thoughts that mostly hold your attention. In this class, I'm going to show you why that's a superpower. But first, I'm going to debunk something. Here is a truth for overthinkers. You're not overthinking. You can't overthink. You're always thinking. Thinking is an inevitability. It's a necessity. It's the mind doing its job. The suffering happens when your awareness, your self, gets stuck within those circular mind streams, thought tracks that spin round and round and down and up, confined to just a handful of infinite possibilities. And that's when, instead of pondering beauty and reflecting on choices and wondering about the unknown, or imagining and appreciating and affirming, instead we find ourselves writhing in torment under the clanging of brain cogs. This is how I've always experienced it anyway. The mechanical clunking and clonking of these thinking thoughts that never go anywhere, consuming your energy, disabling your ability to make decisions, and putting you on a loop of thinking over and over again. This is the kind of thinking that wastes your time and energy and prevents you from acting and doing new things and making progress in your life. It's like tying yourself to a rope that's connected to a pole and just going round and round in circles again and again. But here's a surprising truth. It's that same pole that is going to vault you into a new life. I'm going to show you one way to think your way to healing. And this is super cool. Now, we know that our thoughts are made of electrical signals passing from neuron to neuron. That's common knowledge and that's standard brain law. It's also the classical way of thinking about thought as particle form. But in fact, thoughts are not just manifested flashes of electricity, that's their particle form, but they're also fields of potentiality, that's their wave form. And so it's possible for us to rapidly shift out of manifested mind streams and have a completely different experience without having to spend months and months and months and months carving out new neuro pathways in the brain in the old way of doing brain engineering. What do I mean? Let me give you an example. Now, there is a back alley street in the dodgy end of town where you live. And in the left gutter, there's a dead rat, decaying. And a little bit further down is a homeless man begging for scraps. And a little bit further down, there is a broken window. Behind this window, there is a woman crying, clutching at her breast over the loss of her child. Last night, two friends walked down that street together. The first friend saw the rat, and he saw the evidence of disease and uncleanliness and death. He saw the homeless guy, and he counted this as evidence of poverty and economic disaster and not enoughness. And he saw a woman, and he thought about grief and agony and heartbreak and sorrow. Now, the second friend saw the rat, and he marveled at the miracle of nature's way of reclaiming what is hers and nature's way of using decay to fuel new growth. And he saw the homeless man and marveled at the miracle of a humble Christ, experiencing what it's like to live by the grace of other people's generosity and kindness. And he saw the woman, and he felt her grief, and he marveled in gratitude at the miracle of a mother's deep love. One friend had a traumatic experience compounding the suffering in other areas of his life, and the other friend had a healing experience. Now, it wasn't the circumstance in that back alley street in the town where you live that defined their experience. It was what they thought about what they were witnessing. And a thought is only ever a choice away. And logic is the fastest tool for pivoting your perspective. Now, the thoughts we engage in regarding any matter at all can either come from presence, which is the prefrontal cortex part in your brain organ where you consciously choose your thoughts, or your thinking can come from the basal ganglia area of your brain where you hold unconscious mind streams, where you exercise no choice at all and you operate on automation. If your thinking about any suffering is more harming to you than healing, causing you suffering of any kind, then you can be sure that you're thinking in mind streams. Now, what are mind streams? What are thought patterns? That depends on whether you ask a neuroscientist, a psychologist, an esoteric healer, or a priest, or a behavioral therapist, or a sociologist, or a philosopher, and I've asked all of them. The consensus is, in different languages of industry, of course, that thought patterns are energetic train tracks that are made by the imprints left from patterns of repetitive choice making, and they're not confined to the insides of your skull. They are the forest trails that have been trodden by generations to become superhighways. In examples of this, for example, in the brain organ, this manifests as neuropathways, and in society, this manifests as cultural collective thinking, the kind of thinking that positions panic buying toilet paper as a justifiable defensive action to a threat. Now, what happens with circular thinking, which is the kind of incessant churning that we call overthinking or ruminating, is that often conflicting paradigms create paradoxes, like interference ripples in those thinking patterns, and our logic function kicks in to try and sort it out. Now let's look at some common examples of this that really interfere with your healing progress. These are true examples taken from case studies from hundreds of my clients over years and years and years of doing this philosophical work. And I can tell you that these patterns come up again and again as main core causes of self-sabotage. In example 1, we have paradigm A. Hard work is noble and righteous. Paradigm B. I deserve a life of grace and ease. Ergo, I don't need to have a hard time, but then if I don't, I won't have earned my place. Another example. Paradigm A. I am a good person and I deserve to be healthy. A paradigm B. When I suffer, people will pay me attention, and loving attention is good. Ergo, I want the vibrancy of being healthy and I want the attention I get from being sick. As I said, I use this example because I see it again and again in my clients. It's a classic paradigm that interferes with our ability to heal, and it has us stuck in loops and loops of thought. Because every time one paradigm is fulfilled, the conflicting paradigm is violated, and vice versa. And what happens is the logic function kicks in to sort out these ripples. It looks for evidence, it adds up evidence, and it comes up with conclusions. That's how logic works. It's classic deduction. I'm going to give you a case study. Back in November, a client of mine called Mohammed asked me about a paradox that he's experiencing. And I know that this paradox is really relevant to so many of us. He lived a privileged life. His parents worked really hard to make life easier for their children. So he and his siblings had as much water and air and food and love as they could ever need. He was charismatic and beautiful, and so he magnetized luck and prosperity. And yet, he was stuck in a zombie-like disengagement, stuck in a fog of mediocrity. And anything that he did to lose weight, because that was his physical problem, was that he wanted to lose a little bit of weight. Everything he did to make progress in that area ended up with Taco Tuesdays and tubs of Ben and Jerry's. Why? Because at the same time that his parents worked to make his life easier, they also passed down a specific way of thinking that if you're not struggling, then your life isn't noble. If you're not suffering, then you're not worthy. And if work isn't hard and labored with blood, sweat, and tears, then it isn't really work. But also, you should live a life of no struggle because we have provided this for you. Now, the paradox was that he felt such a call into life of prosperity and peace to honor his parents, but he was terrified that accepting that life of prosperity and peace was cheating somehow. And so he would churn and think and churn over anything in his life that triggered one of these conflicting paradigms. When one paradigm was fulfilled, the other was violated, and vice versa. So the thinking just kept going on with no resolution. And get this, he was creating the suffering that he needed to experience to be worthy of the gift his parents suffered so much for him not to have to suffer for. Will there be any end to the suffering? When can we just let go and have the healing and the grace that we've been asking for, that we've been working for? I took him through the very framework that I'm going to show you right now, and his life changed. So we're going to start right now. Let's put that excellent logic function to use to dissolve our attachment to those mind streams and free our attention to focus on more creative and vitalizing thoughts. So hold here for me while I switch to screen share. Lovely. Now, this tool that we're going to use is divided into 3 segments. The first segment is the old paradigm. This is the fundamental core error code or trauma code in your consciousness, in your awareness, that causes that ripple effect of dissonance into your life, and that triggers that automatic rumination, circular thinking. The second piece is the genius bit. This is the logic. This is the pivoting tool in the middle that helps you lean into a new vibrational reality, lean into a new dimension. And it does it in a very, very fantastic, kind of sneaky healing way. And finally, the final segment of this tool is the new paradigm. This is the new reality that we're installing instead of the old reality. Now, what you're going to do is grab a sheet of paper or sit back and just listen and allow the learning to sink in. But if you're going to be participating with a piece of paper and pen, remember, writing something down is the same as saying it 10 times. So it has a much, much more sticking power. I want you to draw down 8 columns of equal-ish width. The first column, you're going to write down that core paradigm. So you've done a little bit of reflection beforehand, or perhaps we've spent a session in one of our programs. I can certainly recommend Master Alchemist, where we'll get really, really deep into the DNA to understand what the network is of trauma paradigms that are operating in your system. Or you've done this work by yourself, or you've worked with a therapist for a number of years, whatever it might be, you may have identified already what some of those core paradigms are that are causing this vibrational dissonance in your life. We're going to use Muhammad's example, I haven't suffered enough. Write that down in the first column. In the second column, acknowledge the thought pattern that is usually triggered by this when this paradigm has been touched or has been violated in some way by the external environment. In Muhammad's example, we have everybody knows that rags to riches is a noble way of life. There are people starving out there who are having a far worse time than I am. Like, why should I be? Why should I be so healthy and strong? And if I'm not sick, I must have missed something, because everyone else is sick with something. Everyone else has got the new designer bug or the disease of the century, whatever it might be. I seem to be immune to so much. Why is this? I must have missed something. In the third column, write down your vibrational response to this. This is, how does this thought make you feel? Now remember, there's no such thing as a bad thought. Thoughts are empty, they're empty creations. It's what we invest in them that causes our judgment of their value. For example, there are starving people out there. In and of itself is not a bad thought. But if it is coupled with shame, guilt, or regret, or whatever else it might be, then it is the thought system that's causing the suffering in you. But you must acknowledge that it is the vibrational response to the thought that is causing the suffering, or that is the suffering. It's not the thought itself. So write down, really acknowledge as much as you can of the vibrational, the energetics of these negative thought patterns that are triggered by this paradigm. What you're doing is you're stitching together an energetic golden thread, you see. So this is a very important process, and process and system is orderly, and divine order is by far the quickest and most harmonious way to heal. Now we're moving into the logic pivot. So once you've done that little bit of pre-work to begin with, now you start listing, acknowledging, validating all of the evidence that you have collected in your life for the old paradigm. Now that might seem a little counterintuitive, but let me explain why it's such an extremely important part of this process. If a friend of yours came to you with a problem, you wouldn't greet them with, "You're wrong, let me fix you." No, you would meet them with compassion. You would say, "I hear you. I understand why you feel this way. I understand and acknowledge and validate your experience, your divine sacred experience right now, but I would like to offer you another perspective." It's a much smoother, more compassionate way of dealing with change. And in this case, you are your own best friend, and you are the one who is coming to yourself petitioning for a new paradigm. So it's quite important to minimize egoic resistance, to minimize egoic intellectual resistance to a new paradigm, to have acknowledged the validity of your previous way of being. So you're looking for all of the evidence as much as you can. It's really not about listing everything or identifying everything in your life, because you can't. Your life is made of a billion trillion pinpoints in time, and many of them can be isolated in your awareness as being confirmations of this old paradigm. For example, in Mohammed's experience, he could cite the cultural hero worship, the people who have been out and battled and suffered greatly for other people. He again noticed that everyone else was sick with something, and that's in his consciousness, that was proof that he was missing something, because everybody else had their sob story in his mind, and he didn't have one. He would say that suffering is part of life. We've studied the Buddhist texts. We know that scripture talks about the nobility of suffering, and he had identified with that as a necessity. And finally, he would say, but it's when you hit rock bottom, that's when things get better. That's when you go up. But I've never hit rock bottom, you see. So these are all solid reasons that harbor this paradigm that I haven't suffered enough to be worthy of my enlightenment, to be worthy of my forward progress. So this is an important part of the piece. Now we're going to lean into the new paradigm. So this is the pivoting here, and it's a mirror image. You can imagine why it's a mirror image. Now you write down the evidence against. So you're going to, instead of looking for the pinpoints in time in your life that confirm the old paradigm, you're going to look for the pinpoints in your life that confirm the new paradigm. And I can guarantee that if you do this with awareness, you will lose count. Because in that, remember the simile of the orchestra. You can have 99 players playing beautifully and in perfect harmony, and only one player that's playing out of note, but it seems to disrupt the entire orchestra. Now, I bet that if you train your ear, you can hear the absolute beauty coming out of every other pinpoint in your life, and you can train yourself to see the evidence of the new paradigm's validity over the old. And once you've established this in your consciousness, once you've really trained yourself to see this perspective, then this is a paradigm shift. And this can happen super quickly, especially if you do it in this way. So now you've listed all of the evidence that you can find against the old paradigm. And now that is the foundation for building on a new vibrational response. So consciously notice what the equivalent feeling is that goes with the evidence against, or the evidence for the new paradigm, we should say, really. So let's frame it that way. So you're going to invoke, if you can, and I know that you can, the energy fields corresponding to, I have been through my own challenges. In Muhammad's case, suffering is not a requirement. Or I've been able to heal and receive love even when I wasn't on rock bottom. These were his examples of evidence for a new paradigm. And the feeling that he got from that idea, holding that concept in his mind, was recognition, relief, peace, celebration and acceptance and momentum and excitement. And what results from that is right action. Now, when you've got a new vibrational soil, you could say, you begin to list the new thoughts that can form. Now, remember, the vibrational response, that's your point of attraction. So when you train your vibrational response into this new feeling that goes with the new paradigm, you can begin to form new thoughts. So now these thoughts have much more sticking power because you've trained your vibration to a higher point. So in his case, the new thought was, hang on, my story is noble. I have been through things and my story is noble and worthy. I am actually enough already, and I do deserve love. And I can heal and trust that I won't lose my place in the great circle of life if I am my best, if I am optimized, if I am fully in my power, if my body is healed, if my mind is peaceful, and if my heart is calm. Now, the new paradigm then is I am enough. This was the case in Muhammad's experience. The new paradigm, I am enough already, is the pivot of the old paradigm. Now, of course, you logically and intuitively already knew what the pivot would be when you started this treatment. But the fact that you've gone through the process means that you've woven this energetic thread between the realms of mind, of vibration, and of body. So this is a very powerful technique. It is an adaptation from cognitive behavioral psychology, which means it's also a form of neuro-linguistic programming. But in this particular application, it is energy work. Congratulations, you have now established an energetic trail between the paradigm, the mind stream, and your vibrational response. And you've used logic as the tool for pivoting into a new mental reality. The clarity that you've already gained from this is a huge open space for loving awareness. The hardest part is done. Now you have the clarity on where to focus your healing work for maximum efficiency and fast results. Now, conscious thinking like this takes no time out of your day because your brain was going to be doing the thinking anyway. And once you've practiced it a few times and you're used to knowing when your awareness is on automation and mind stream, then this is something that you can do while you do the dishes, while you fetch the kids from play school, while you build a bridge from the old to the new. Now you have a marvelous, malleable mind, and you can rapidly reprogram the subconscious to effortlessly and smoothly make every decision of thought in alignment with your highest and best. Now, rest into a soft stillness. And in your own way, sink into a groundedness. If you have that bottle of cedarwood, grab that now. Cedarwood is very rich in a particular molecule called the sesquiterpenes. They relax the rigidity of the mind, and they help these teachings sink into your body and your biofield and your consciousness. So rub a drop of this together in your hands and inhale. Close your eyes if you like and receive. Know that it is not your brain or your thoughts that have done the learning today, but your cells, your cellular entourage of trillions of servants willing and wishing to do your command. And together, we have pivoted the paradigm. I have not suffered enough. And instead, we've established a new paradigm. I am enough already. And with the power of our attention and intention, we agree this now as our default way of thinking about our healing. So what next? I recommend that you take a look at Genius, a 5-week coaching program jam-packed with value, thought protocols, thought experiments, meditations, and exercises designed to systematically free your mind from involuntary thinking patterns. And I can also recommend the Master Alchemist training, where we dig really deep into the patterns of mind to resolve paradigms and traumas stored in the DNA, and then follow with a simple energy protocol for clearing and rebooting. These 2 courses, Genius and Master Alchemist, are both part of Sovereign, the master curriculum for life. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed this class. There was a lot of material to cover, but don't worry, this video and your free gift will be on their way to you in no time at all. And that free gift is a downloadable MP3 with a powerful thought experiment called The Floating Man, which will bring your awareness into alpha state and help accelerate your healing. Good night, think gentle thoughts, and we'll see each other again soon.